Ladies and gentlemen, happy 4th of July from In the Zone. Happy birthday, America. Great country that we're so fortunate to live in. This is a great place. And I'm never going back, Pete. That's what they used to say in the old days. I'm never going back. All right, so we're here in the zone. We're going to do a couple of things for you today. Number one, we're going to go through some NBA stuff that's been hopping. A lot of action in the NBA right now with concerning trades, coaching hires, some different things that we're going to opine about right here. And we're also going to go into our NCAA section, which is very fluid right now. And then also in the last segment of the show today, we will cover the second round of the NBA draft, grade it out, give you a look at what happened, and talk about some of the storylines that were in that second round, because there are some interesting ones. If you look at Kyle Filipowski sliding all the way down to the second round to be taken by the Utah Jazz, that was a head scratcher. And then Bronny at 55, we can talk about that as well.
No big surprise there.
I wasn't surprised. A lot of people were. A lot of people objected to it. We'll talk about it a little bit more in depth. We have a little piece here on it, and we'll get into it a little bit more. Basically, we'll talk about it in two frames, a little bit of a binary equation for me. All right, so we're going to start off with NBA Fish, though, Pete. We're going to jump right in. And where we're at right now with this stuff is just, we're going to jump off, and I've asked Pete to install a buzzer for me because we just have to be able to jump in on certain things here and absolutely just call him on it. And right now, J.J. Redick to the Lakers. We're going to jump right off with perhaps, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this, the worst coaching hire in the history of the NBA.
That just means he's not the coach.
Now, we can go back. We can go back over time and review and purview on some of these terrible hires that have gone on in NBA history. Isaiah Thomas comes to mind, especially some of the retreads that they've had time and time again. But this one, I believe that JJ stands for just joking. And Redick going to the Lakers is an absolute slap in the face to every single coach who was climbing the ladder the right way. It's an absolute slap in the face to the coaching fraternity. And that slap in the face was administered partially, in part, from what I hear, by none other than the great Coach K. The K standing for control. And so we looked at, and so the Lakers, you went from Danny Hurley, who's the hottest coach in basketball right now, pro or collegiate. He's the hottest coach in the game right now. You went from Danny Hurley to J.J. Redick. And that's about as fast as Enron fell, okay? You're going downhill. You're going in a toboggan straight downhill with this hire, in my opinion. Now, they have brought in some assistant coaches who have good NBA experience, but I thought it was also a further slap in the face when they posted his resume
Did they really?
On television. They posted his resume. They had the audacity to post this thing on ESPN. And basically what it was an encapsulated little block that said something along the effect of St. Matthew's boys 6th grade team in Brooklyn. 1 year. 1 year. That makes there at least 40,000 resumes greater for this job than J.J. Redick's. Okay? Coach K wouldn't have gotten the Duke job under those constraints. Coach K would not have gone from Army to Duke under those constraints. We should take off all of this stuff with this forcing these jobs and putting these jobs in the hands of people that are basically Doug Gottlieb getting hired in the college arena right after being in as a podcaster, and now J.J. Redick, another podcaster, gets probably the one or two best job in the entire NBA. It's a slap in the face. We're going to leave it there. And our first round on with our ex-buzzer, that's a big no-no for me. Sixers. Philadelphia 76ers fans down there will be happy to know that their general manager and their staff are moving and grooving. Post-draft, you saw a lot of action, but this is the big one. Paul George from the Clippers jumping in and going to join the 76ers next year. And what it was a little bit less of a signing from a notability standpoint, but nonetheless a little bit more of a help for where they actually really needed some help, was they signed UConn great Andre Drummond to a contract as well. And so I think that's going to help the Sixers. I think the Eastern Conference, the finals next year, pick them for me right now. You thought the Knicks and Celtics were going to dance. Now the Sixers are saying, hold on, we're in this too. And the dropping of George, where you now have Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid, you have a really good big three. The NBA is moving towards big two, big three. Big two, big three. The Mavericks are on 2-time. Some others are still on 3-time. Some of them run on 1-time, and then kind of go 2 and 3-time off of that. But, like Jalen Brunson runs on 1-time. He's going to have the ball most of the time. James Harden runs on 1-time. The NBA is a little bit more effective, like when you had a Pippen and Jordan, that's 2-time. When you had Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Danny Ainge, that's on 3-time. So it depends. And I think the NBA has in their scope, has become more and more narrow in that, going a little bit more to 1-time, a little bit more to 2-time. I think the 1-time thing's really hard, and I think you saw that in the very, very early career of Michael Jordan. If you really wanted to get a good look at how that 1-time works, he put up 63 points in Boston Garden, and they still lost the series. Okay, this was interesting. Came up on the Twitter, on the X, and so I wanted to share it with our fans. There's 3 people who've been consecutive MVPs in the NBA. 3 people who've done it 3 years in a row. I thought it was very interesting. Number 1, Bill Russell, 1961, 1962, and 1963. People do not estimate Russell in the right way in terms of his profound impact on this game, and what an amazing, go back and watch some of the highlight films of him, what an amazing athlete he was. He was one of the first almost track stars to come into basketball. He was fast. He could long jump. He could high jump. He was just an amazing, amazing athlete. And people underestimate that. So 61, 62, and 63. Okay? I was 1, 2, and 3 years old. Beautiful time for basketball. Wilt Chamberlain then picked up the mantle and ran with it. 66, 67, and 68. Wilt, 3-time MVP. Now, the next guy's a Boston Celtics guy, Pete. Who do you think it is?
It's probably Bird.
Gotta be Bird.
Yeah.
It is the Bird. Flew in from Indiana State and absolutely revolutionized the NBA. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird saved the NBA. Bird, 84, 85, and 86. Beautiful. Good stuff there. Okay, so the lowest picks ever to grab awards here. I thought this was interesting as well, because way back in the day, you're going to hear, what I was talking about when I was a young man about the 10 rounds of the NBA draft, and how I had friends who were really good basketball players and solid, good athletes and capable of maybe playing professionally, and did play professionally. They were drafted in the later rounds, and that was something they could always have as a resume builder, something else that was really, really cool. That's why I think the NBA should expand and go back to more rounds. But right now, they don't seem to be interested in that, having broken up night 1 and night 2 of the draft into 2 nights, which was, to me, redonkulous.
They think they're the WWE now.
I just think I think they're just looking for airtime.
Right, that's what
Just
it is,
looking
yeah.
for airtime,
More money.
airtime in the downtime.
Yep.
All right. So number 1, All-Star Game MVP, the lowest draft pick of all time to win the All-Star Game MVP was none other than Randy Smith. People don't even remember Randy Smith.
Who?
Buffalo Braves, back when the NBA and the ABA merged, 1978, and he was the 104th overall pick. Now you have 58. So it'll show you how much more the draft was expanded. And by bringing in Randy Smith, who was a bona fide NBA player, he was a great guard. He would give you fits because he was so fast and so good with the basketball. He was like a 6'2" version, a 6'3" version of Calvin Murphy. One of those pound for pound, just tough, great guards. And Randy Smith was unbelievable. But at the 104th pick, wound up being the lowest draft pick ever to be an All-Star Game MVP. Very, very cool. Regular season MVP, Nikola Jokic in 21, 22, and 24. Very, very nice. He was the 41st pick. And also NBA Finals is Jokic as well, in at 41. Down to the UConn Huskies faithful, Kemba Walker has decided to retire after an elite college career and a very, very strong NBA career. I really, really enjoyed Kemba Walker as a player. Really, really loved that guard power that UConn brings to the table. And he was, if you look at some of the runs he had late in college as they went in and really started cooking, it was Kemba Walker that had that whole thing going. He had the spoon in his hand. Klay Thompson decides to leave the Golden State Warriors and go to the Mavericks. Turned down an offer from the Lakers, which I thought was interesting. Had an opportunity to go to the Lakers with LeBron and with Anthony Davis and now Bronny, but decided to go in with the Mavericks, and maybe he thinks they have a little bit better chance of being more relevant as the Mavericks played in the finals this year. Okay? Tatum, our guy from the Celtics, what a season. What a season this young man had. What a gentleman he is. Jason Tatum from the Celtics, just rewarded. Pete, you're gonna have to hold on to your wallet for this one. But if this is the cost of what's going on, this is what it is. All right.
Did you notice that right around the same time the Celtics went up for sale?
Yeah. How about that? They just signed two guys.
Looks like I'm out.
Just signed two guys for over $100 million. We talked about this viability, affordability. Is this going to put? Now the Celtics can probably handle this, but nobody else can. Very few other teams can, and so that's where you're putting the NBA into. Who's got the most money right now? But it's the largest NBA contract in history. Jason Tatum. Now you got Brown in at $50+ million. Tatum goes in for $314 million, over $60 million a year. I couldn't find any information on it right now, but I alluded to the signing bonus that Jaylen Brown got last year. They gave him $20 million to re-sign with his own team. So I don't know if Tatum got a bonus to re-sign as well.
That's probably part of the package.
At $314 million. You would hope not, but they gave Brown $250+ million and threw another 20 on top of that, maybe for relocation expenses. $63 million a year. $63 million a year. Good for him. Good for him. Okay, we had the top 20 last week of the playoffs, and we went through it. We didn't like it. Pete didn't like it. I didn't like it. So we threw it out. And now In the Zone brings you back our own playoff top 20. And it's going to be a good one. Number one, Michael Jordan. He's a clutch player. Got the rings. He's got everything to go with it. You can't really knock him out of the number one spot. Number two, Larry Bird. Larry Bird, the Boston Celtics, great. We have Larry Bird as the greatest of all time as a basketball player. Go back and watch some of the highlight reels. Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, to me, are the number one and two, and you can flip them each way you want. But if we're talking purely basketball player and taking God-given athletic ability out of it, Larry Bird is unquestionably the greatest player ever to play this game. So we got Magic Johnson in the 3 spot. I really like Magic Johnson's game when he was a young man. Took the Lakers on his back, and he actually got Kareem hustling up and down the floor a little bit late in his career. I really thought that he was a great motivator as well. So we're going to put LeBron in the number 5 spot, LeBron James. Great numbers, great career, has lasted, has sustained, has done a great job as an NBA ambassador, okay? But he's also got about 6 finals losses, and so we had to put that in as well. All right, next is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the great Kareem. 1 shot, and it was the greatest of all time for a long time. LeBron came in and broke the record, but for Kareem, it was the long shot for the long time, the big sky hook, and that took him upwards of thousands of points. Okay, next we're going to put in a guy who was not in at all in the previous one, and this is why we redid it. Johnny Hondo Havlicek. Get those Celtics fans who are old school Celtics fans jumping up and down. Johnny No Bicycle was one of the greatest of all time. And when you look back, the problem that we have in this nouveau evaluation assessment arena is that these people never saw these guys play. You never saw John Havlicek put up the numbers that he did. You never saw Bill Russell dominate the game in the way that he did. And that's a bit of a problem.
And that's also when the NBA wasn't as popular in pop culture either.
No doubt. And it's also, much more magnified right now,
Right,
with
yeah,
social media,
yeah.
with the phone, with the internet, with all of that. Absolutely. But I've been around for all of it. And so neither one of those two mediums really shakes me one way or the other. A black and white TV sitting in my living room, or I'm watching it on my phone on a train coming home from Florida. Makes no difference. As long as I'm watching the game, I'm going to be able to evaluate it for you. And if you're telling me that John Havlicek doesn't belong on this list, you're smoking something that I'm not. Okay. So Tim Duncan. We like TD. We got him in there. What another ambassador for the game. What another great player. Just a gentleman and a great representative of the NBA. Number 8, number 9. We're going with my guy, Clyde Walt Frazier, one of the greats of all time. Another person who didn't make the previous list. How do you write a playoff list without Clyde Frazier on it? Come on, fellas. You blew it. Kobe, you got to have Kobe. He's got the rings. He's got everything. My Uncle Harvey loved this guy, and what a great, great player he was. I loved his work ethic. I loved the fact he could speak multiple languages. He was educated. He was erudite. Again, I say the word ambassador for the NBA, a Bob Lanier type, an ambassador, a person who was able to contribute well beyond his basketball abilities. Okay, Kobe. All right, we got Isaiah Thomas here. I got Isaiah Thomas. He was a great, great player. Has the championship rings. The Detroit Bad Boy Pistons. Unbelievable time in the NBA. If they weren't going to be able to shoot themselves into a championship, they were going to be able to fight themselves into a championship. And they had the original Worm, Dennis Rodman. They had Lambeer. They had Mahorn. They had guys that were there they were called the Beef Brothers for a reason. But Isaiah Thomas has the NCAA championship. He's got an NBA championship, and he's much maligned. And when people have a tendency to go after somebody in the way that they've gone after Isaiah Thomas, me, for some reason, my personality says, let's stand with the guy, because I'll stand with him because his accomplishments are unbelievable. And you can say, well, they kept him off the Olympic team, whatever. That's just petty nonsense that went on there. To say that he didn't belong in that category of players is absolutely crazy. It's intellectually bereft. All right. We got Isaiah. Scottie Pippen. How do you not have Scottie Pippen on this list, folks? Michael Jordan's right-hand consigliere. You don't have him on here. The Bulls running through the NBA like UConn's running through the NCAA right now. You don't have Scottie Pippen? Come on, fellas. Come on. Tony Parker, the great guard, the Spurs guard. They had a great run. If you look at since we were young, you look at it, okay, you had, the Celtics did their thing for so many years. And then the NBA realized it wasn't really good to have the Celtics winning all those championships, so they split it up. Of the 18 that the Celtics currently have, a lot of those were in the Russell, Havlicek, Cousy era, where they won 11 of the 18. Okay, now the NBA likes parity. They like to mix it up a little bit. I just think you can't put a playoff list together without Bob Cousy. One of the great guards. Hakeem Olajuwon. How do you not have the Dream on there with the Houston Rockets? And as I was saying, you had the Celtics for all those years. Then it became Boston and the Lakers. Then the Detroit Pistons took over. Then the Chicago Bulls took over. Then the Spurs took over. And so you've had these runs of teams that have been really, really good. And these are, the Houston Rockets took over for a little while, with Olajuwon, Kenny Smith, and Clyde Drexler. Great teams, But I'm going to go Steph Curry here as well. Great shooter, maybe has revolutionized the game in a way that, some coaches aren't comfortable with because of the length of some of those shots right now, and they do go in. But he seems to be the only guy that can make those on a regular basis. But that doesn't stop everybody else from trying, and that's what drives us coaches crazy. Okay, we got him here. I mean, they had him on this list way, way high. I bumped him down because I was never a huge fan of this guy. Shaquille O'Neal, the big Shaq Diesel, 18. You got to put him in, but certainly not in the 4 spot, folks. All right? I thought that list was written by his wife, personally. Clyde the Glide Drexler. Come on, folks. How does he not go on this list? He was iconic. And again, it's these young guys that didn't see way back when. They didn't know. They're going to learn today, though, Pete. They're going to learn today. And I put down number 20. I split this because, posthumously, I wanted to give a little bit of a shot, but neither one of these gentlemen had they had great playoff numbers and sustaining, but they didn't have the number of championships that some of these other players have, and the number of times they lost to the Celtics was just mind-numbing.
Kind of like anybody who played in the Buffalo Bills in the 80s.
100%. Jim Kelly's Warriors, man. But I got Chamberlain and I got Jerry West in the 20 spot. I put them all over there. In the high honorable mention, some people that aren't on here, and I put them in for honorable mention because a list of 20 is very difficult. How do you have a list of 20 without Nikola Jokic on it? I didn't put him in. Jerry West, we had him in that slot with Chamberlain. Could have easily been Jokic, Earl Monroe, Rick Barry, Sam Jones, Nikola Jokic, Jaylen Brown, and Kevin Durant. Those are all names I
Those
thought
names
that
that would probably enter on Jokic and Jaylen Brown. They'll enter on there eventually.
As time goes. Time goes. So this GOAT question a lot on the internet is very, very binary these days. I don't think it should be as binary as it is because there's so many possibilities out there when you're talking about the greatest of all time. That doesn't mean that your guy has to be the greatest of all time, but it has to mean that there have to be room for a conversation. Okay? There has to be room for Bill Russell to be in that conversation with 11 rings. He ran out of fingers, folks. He ran out of fingers. Okay, John Havlicek, probably not one of the greats of all time, but certainly in that conversation. Oscar Robertson, Jerry West. These are players that were played in the day. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Come on, folks. You have to consider all of them.
Yep.
But in this equation of it's only A plus B, where you have LeBron and you have Michael, I wanted to just shed some light on this because this is kind of interesting, all right? Total points in the NBA. LeBron James is number 1. Michael Jordan is number 5. Total points, okay? Points per game. LeBron James is number 5. Michael Jordan, number 1. And now that you've heard me say Michael Jordan, number 1, get your ears ready to hear it a few more times, okay? Playoff points per game. LeBron, 6. Michael, 1. Scoring titles. LeBron, 6. Michael, 1. Finals MVP, LeBron number 2, Michael number 1. All defensive first team, LeBron number 5, Michael number 1. Player efficiency rating, LeBron number 3, Michael Jordan number 1. Okay, so we're going to jump into the Bronny Gate. Pete, let's jump right in with both feet. All right?
What Bronny Gate? There's no I don't think there's any controversy here. They wanted to keep LeBron on the team. What was LeBron's conditions? He probably took a cut in pay.
No, he actually just redid his contract. They said he was going to take a cut, but I had a tough time finding the cut.
They probably put more years.
They gave him a little bit of time. You know, he wanted a few more years. I mean, where he's at right now, we're talking 2 years is like a long-term contract.
Right, yeah.
You know, and so he's 39, he's going to be 40, 41, you know, so they're measuring that. And they're also just keep looking at him.
But also LeBron understands the NBA of today is to be really like the WWE where you're trying to promote an image more so than the actual sport. It's sports entertainment.
It's
And
entertainment.
So he's
entertainment.
So he's looking at it as a sports entertainment angle, and the angle that they can sell tickets is LeBron playing with his son.
So
there's your angle.
Yeah, and a lot of people jumped on this, and I kind of thought Woj was on point with this, where he said there's been a lot of nepotism in the NBA. This isn't the first go of it, you know. But for me, I look at it, if you want to go binary, if we're in the binary these days where there's only two possibilities of our considerations, what I would say is let's look at it as nepotism, for sure. Let's look at it that way. And then let's look at it as capitalism. Nepotism versus capitalism. How much money are the Lakers going to make on this project?
Right, yeah.
Billions,
Yeah.
millions, multi-millions of dollars.
It's a massive marketing campaign.
It's the 55th pick in the second round, which is generally traded, thrown away, or you sign the guy to a two-way contract. Okay? So all of this stuff about it being nepotism, I think over time, Bronny could be a solid pro. I think that could happen. I think they got to give him a little bit more time, and he needs to be able to prove that in some other arenas. But I think he might have some time on a two-way contract, but also I don't think the Lakers' depth at point guard is very good, where they have a guy who's not even a point guard in D'Angelo Russell. He runs the point for them. But after that, look at their team and tell me who is their backup point guard. And I think, you might keep Bronny around because he can handle that role, And
Coach, it's already paying off. We're talking about a 55 pick over anybody in the top 10.
You're talking about...
Right? We're talking about a 55 pick.
100%. And you're talking about franchisement.
Yeah.
You're talking about selling jerseys. They're going to have a jersey that's split. It's going to be a Laker jersey, and it's going to be split on one side and have LeBron's number. Then it's going to be split on the other side, and it's going to have Bronny's number, and they're going to sell a lot of them.
Yep.
This is going to be good for television, good for marketing, good for everything.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, say, well, what business is the NBA in? They're in a business. They're in the business.
They're in this business.
The business of making money. Absolutely. Ring that register all day, Pete. But right here, I'm not jumping on this one because it ain't like there wasn't value here. There's a lot of value.
It's not like he was just some scrub.
No. And you're in a situation where, let's be honest, folks, the NBA is entertainment.
Yes.
Okay? They're bringing people into the stands to entertain them. That's why you can take 6 steps on a dunk.
Yep.
That's why you can do all of the things they do, and they've eliminated defense so that people will find it more plausible. People will find it more entertaining.
Yep.
They didn't do those things because they thought it helped the game. They did them because they thought it made it more entertainment. And if you want to look closely at some of the NBA logos, franchisement, and all of that stuff, it clearly says it's an entertainment entity. All right? That means they can do anything they want.
Yep.
And you're going to sit there and like it. I hate to tell you that, but that's kind of the way it goes.
Yep.
All right, Pete, let's slip right in. We're on schedule today. We're rocking and rolling. I love this. Great summer I'm having here, Pete. I'm having a good summer. I just love the summer. And we're going into the Portal Potty Pirates segment right away. We got a little cleanup to do from last week. Coleman Hawkins, our number one guy, we said he was going to Illinois and leaving Kansas State. We had that in reverse. Okay, he is leaving Illinois and going to Kansas State. Little cleanup on aisle 3 for you. In the Portal Potty segment, right now we have 1,777 of 3,055 total are committed to new programs. 58.2% of the transfers are gone. But I got news for you, folks. It's July. Teams are already practicing. Scholarships are very, very few and far between right now. Most teams have exhausted all their scholarships. And we talked about a little bit of that side door stuff that's going to happen possibly at the high D1 level where they run out of scholarships and they sidetrack that NCAA law and just give the young man so much money he'll pay the tuition on his own and won't need a scholarship. So they can take their roster full of fully paid and stuck guys way beyond the level of 13 if they want to right now. Now, can LIU do that? Can Fairfield do that? Can Manhattan College do that? Absolutely not. But if you got big bucks and you can put an NIL deal on the table and you say, okay, our tuition's $70,000 and it's going to cost you that much to go to school here, so instead of $400,000, we're giving you $470,000. Portal Potty, 58.2%. That number's not that good. That number's not that good. And again, as we said, this is not an elevator. This isn't the door to opportunity. It's an escalator. It rides up and it rides down. And sometimes it breaks and don't ride at all. And so this is where you're at with this portal. Be careful when you put your name into this thing, fellas, because it isn't the big thing that you really think it is. There's not a lot of coaches just pouring over all of the names that are in there. You know why? Because there's 3,055 of them. Right. It's mind-numbing. It's difficult. And a lot of them aren't even geographically located in an area where you could actually go see them play live if you wanted to. Unless, of course, you have a major Power 5 budget where you can fly all over the country to see people. But if we find a young man out here, and Bryant College finds a young man out here and the guy's in Wisconsin, it's a lot of resource to go out there and find that guy. All right. Here's something we talked about last year, NCAA. In our Feed 'em Fish segment, we're going to really harp on this because this matters. And if you go back to the show where we did this last year, you'll see what condition your condition is in. And what we mean by that is what type of program do you have? And this is going to be like startling for some people because some of this is a complete turnaround. And it's really, really good to notice that for the coaches who've been able to pull that off. But also, you look at some of these other teams, and some of these percentages are going to jump out at people, and they're going to be a little bit scary. All right, so hold on to your hat and get ready to go. The team that came in last place last year in the ACC for having the most points returning, this matters, folks, who's coming back? And what did they do the year before? Because the best prediction of the future is past performance. And so we're looking at saying, okay, Notre Dame was going into last year's season with about 2% of all their scoring back. And look at what happened to them. They had a very long year. They had to really, really reset, retread, go all the way, recalibrate all the way through their program, and now start again. And it's a little easier to start again if you got all that money and all that NIL stuff. But what's really apparent to me is the NIL caught a lot of these schools by surprise. The NIL seemed to be a little bit more ready at the football level than it was some other levels, and maybe that's because of the availability of some of that cash. But Notre Dame returns 85.6% of their team scoring. Excellent. They're adding some new guys, which is going to make it better. Notre Dame's going to be back up there. But when you listen to some of this other stuff that's going on in the ACC, I think you're going to be surprised. Wake Forest, they do a great job over there. 59.8% of all their scoring returns. Good number. UNC, 56%. That was really buttressed by the return of R.J. Davis, who probably is responsible for a third of that scoring right there. But 56% is returning for North Carolina. Very, very good number. Pitt has 48.2. Carrington was a first-round draft pick. I was a little surprised at that. Had he stayed and had they returned Bubba Carrington, I think Pitt was ready to make a move and step up here. But they lost him, but they still have 48.2% of their scoring back. Anywhere near 50% is good. If it gets below that, and you're going to see some of this now, it's going to be rough. Okay, Clemson, 45%. Georgia Tech, 42.2%. North Carolina State, 40%. They lose the big guy, DJ. Syracuse, 36.9. That's kind of low. They should be a little higher than that. Virginia, 39.5. That number's not very good. Here's some of the new teams and where they stock up. SMU is in the ACC now, folks. You're going to have to get used to some of this stuff because this isn't the way it used to be. And they're at 31.9. Miami, 31.7. They had Norshard O'Meara. They had their young man turn pro. They had a lot of losses on this program. I don't know how they're going to recalibrate all of that going down there. Florida State, 30.2. Not good. Stanford coming into the league with 26.7 and a brand new basketball coach. Duke, 14th, returns 21.2%. The good news for the Blue Devils is that they reload better than anybody in the country right now. Virginia Tech, 13.1. This is going to be rough, folks. Boston College returns 12.7% of all their scoring from the previous year, and they weren't very good last year. All right. Cal coming in to the ACC out of the West Coast, flying in with a packed load, a roster that's ready to rock and roll for the first time in the league. They return 0%. 0%. Hold on. Still got one more. 18, Louisville. Now, this has been a program that's been down and down and down and down, and this is like that LifeLock commercial. They've fallen. They can't get up. Really, really having a tough time getting up. They just changed coaches, brought in a new regime, new staff. Again, recalibration. Recalibration takes time. Time costs you energy. Time costs you the amount of progress that you can make because you're filling in the old holes. You're filling in the old potholes, okay? But Louisville in the 18th spot with the powerhouse returning 0% of all of their scoring. All of their players left, and all of their players that are coming in now are completely new to Louisville. Scary times, folks. Scary times.
Here's the other thing. In the NCAA's trying to become relevant year-round, they've thrown the product into the mud. It's a mud pit.
No doubt.
And now they're going to look foolish come the fall because it is chaos out there.
I think they're about ready because once you open the door to this stuff, people find new and inventive ways to create more chaos. All right. So everything the NCAA is doing right now is up for challenge. Everything they're doing is open to debate. Everything they're doing is subject because they completely have lost their legitimacy as an organization. What is legitimacy, folks? Legitimacy means that the people who are in charge, the ones we entrusted with the power, are absolutely doing the best thing they can for the people. Okay? NCAA has lost legitimacy. Parts of the United States government have lost legitimacy because people no longer believe in them. That's a problem. That's when you've really, really hit the really, really low parts of what you're doing. All right. So now we're going to go with a way too early shot look at the Big Ten. All right. And then we're going to jump into some revenue, and then we're going to do the draft. All right. So way too early. This is, again, I'm not a great marketing person. I didn't study any of that stuff when I was in high school or college or anywhere since then. Every now and then I like to read a book on how certain things have been marketed and the great job that they've done marketing those things. But when you call the Big Ten, but you have 18 teams, you've got a marketing problem. They didn't call it the Big Ten because it was located on the longitudinal and latitudinal direction of 10. No, it's the Big Ten because they had 10 teams. Now you have 18. Here we go. Purdue, number 1. Holding on. I don't know. I don't see how that happens without the big fella. Indiana, number 2. I can see that. They've really addressed some things, and they brought in a couple of good players and have kept their players also. Illinois, 3rd. Oregon. Oregon, folks, in the Big Ten. I say it again. Oregon in the Big Ten. They're picked to be 4th. UCLA, 5th. UCLA in the Big Ten, folks. UCLA is in the Big Ten. It's a joke. Rutgers, 6th. Ohio State, 7. Maryland, 8. Michigan State, 9. They've really fallen, that program. Michigan, 10, another one that's fallen because of some of your hiring also, though. They don't have that issue at Michigan State with Izzo, but at Michigan they do. They had some problems with hiring. You had John Beilein, one of the great basketball minds in the country, and then after that you didn't. And that's a problem. Wisconsin, Nebraska in the 12 spot. Now you're going to go into this last row, and this is what we call catfish row. These are people just eating the bottom of the tank in order to stay alive. Whatever falls from the bigs down to the bottom, Northwestern's going to scoop it up. Iowa, way down here in the 14th spot, but I want to see how that works out because Coach McCaffrey has been picked lower than this and done a great job with his team before. They have a different way of doing things out there, and I think Coach McCaffrey has a little bit on speed dial right now, a little bit like Coach McDermott at Creighton, where they know what they want, they know how to go get it, and they're going to have it by the time it's done, and they'll be pretty good. USC in the Big Ten. I'm going to say it again. It's incredible. You have UCLA, USC, and Oregon in the Big Ten right now. Think of all that travel. Think of all those extra hotel rooms. Think of all of the stuff that's now being added on to the expense side of the house. USC, again, Minnesota, 16. Washington's in. They took 4 teams from the West Coast, and now you have 18. Penn State. Do they ever get up? Do any of these teams ever get up in this current constraint? Or are you just looking at that's your program and you're going to get paid, but you're not going to be a good program? You're not going to be a winning program. You're never going to be in the top edge of your conference. And if you can't be in the top level of your conference, at least break the Mendoza line of being 50% or above, you're not getting anywhere near the NCAA tournament. And you can go net and do all the net you want. You know, with beating people, with beating really bad teams by 80 points, it's not going to hold up forever, folks. It's not going to hold up forever. And we've looked at some of the St. John's non-conference schedule is out. Some of the other non-conference schedules are out. There's an awful lot of cannolis on those schedules, Pete. All right, we're running here, and I'm going to go quick. All right, here's some, and again, this was variable. And what I mean by that is I saw different numbers on different things. And so I only took this one and I went with it, but it gives a pretty good estimation of revenue and expenses. Who made money in college basketball last year? Number one team. And again, I saw this variable. I saw Duke wasn't number one, and I saw one where they were number one. $43.9 million, Pete. That's why they put up with it. Now, I don't know what all the expenses are. I'd like to see the list of expenses because we know where the revenue's coming from. We know where the money's coming from ticket sales, from television, from all of those good things. But where are your expenses? And what are you counting as expenses? Do you now count your NIL as an expense? Going to have to. Do you now count the amount of guarantee games that you're playing? Is that an expense? Of course it is. That's money being paid out. So Duke at 43.9. Louisville. This is staggering to me because this program has been on its back, flat on its back, but yet they produce $38.5 million in revenue. I don't get it. But some of that's built in. Some of that's catfish money. You're going to get that ACC money. You're going to get that Big Ten money. You're going to get that Big 12 money. You're going to get all that power conference money, and that's going to keep you relevant. But I was very surprised at that number, and I think you'll be surprised at some of the low numbers here as well. Georgetown, again, flat on their back. Now, maybe their expenses are low because they don't NIL as well as everybody else does. I don't know. But $34.4 million. Syracuse, $32.4 million. The Dome is a cash cow. That thing just brings in customers. North Carolina, $31.7 million. Okay, and now you're looking at some of the teams on the women's side when we talked about it before. University of Mississippi scheduled to lose $8 million this year. Now you see how you balance the lodge. Now you see how you're balancing the ledgers, all right? Because some of this is the men's program in football and basketball, if it's successful, are paying for everybody else. They're paying all of the bills. All right, Illinois 28.2, Indiana 26.9. Arizona, 26.3. Thought that was a little bit low. Kentucky, I thought this was really low for them. They're in ninth place. Revenue and expenses, 24.2. That probably means they spent it like crazy. That probably means Calipari was spending money like he was going out of style. Ohio State, 23.6, and I'll just run through the rest. Texas, Michigan, Marquette, Alabama, Michigan State, Arkansas. Guess who I haven't said yet, Pete?
Connecticut.
Haven't said the Huskies yet. Haven't said Houston Cougars yet. Teams have been the best teams around, and you got two of the worst teams around in Louisville and Georgetown, and they're in the 2 and 3 spot. I don't get it. I guess it depends who your accountant is. Gonzaga, Auburn, Tennessee, Florida State. A lot of it just makes me shake my head. Okay, right before we get into the draft here, I want to take one more little bit of a segment here, and we're going to talk about University of Central Florida's basketball program, Johnny Dawkins. We're talking UCF equals WTF. All right? We're really, really wondering what's going on over there, okay? What they should do right now, because Johnny Dawkins is Duke. Johnny Dawkins has that Duke connection. Johnny Dawkins knows Bobby Hurley. He knows Danny Hurley. He knows Coach K. They know everybody in that family. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to offer a piece of advice to Coach Dawkins. Bring in Bob Hurley Sr. because his parole officer background will be really, really helpful for your team. This is what I mean. Mikey Williams, maybe committed there, maybe hasn't committed yet. We're not 100%, but what we were told he's going there. He's got a felony gun conviction. Dior Johnson, possibly going there, maybe not. They're scheduled to sign him up and ready to go. He has a misdemeanor strangulation conviction. Benny Williams was dismissed at Syracuse. Not sure what you got to do to get dismissed at Syracuse, but it's got to be pretty big. All right? They have J.J. Taylor was suspended at Memphis. What I just said about Syracuse, repeat that from Memphis. I don't know what you got to do to get suspended at Memphis because the bar there is pretty high. But this guy, J.J. Taylor, suspended at Memphis. They have two other players on their third school in 3 years. That's not that unusual, so that's not that big a deal, but it does give you an idea of what they have as far as their roster and what they're doing and how they're doing it. I'd be a little bit concerned if I was the athletic director or the president of that university. I think I'd be a little bit concerned. All right, what I did want to say also is the UFC, their logo, their mascot is Nitro. Okay? It's a knight, a knight with a sword and Sir Galahad type of knight, and they call him Knight, Knight, Tro, Tro. Okay? Nitro. Okay? I'm going to give them a new nickname today, Pete, and it's going to be Nitroglycerin because that thing might blow. All right, Pete, we're going right into the draft. Tell me how much time I got left, Pete. I'm saying 12 minutes.
No, you have more like 14.
14. I'm grooving here, Pete. All right. So the first thing we got to talk about in the draft segment is the Filipowski flop. What happened there? And social media on this one has been unbelievable, including what would appear to be Mr. Filipowski's own family. Let me give you a little background here. And this is possibly why I had him in the top 15. I had him in the top 10 most likely. I think I had the Spurs taking him at 8. Okay? But he dropped and dropped and dropped and did not get taken on the first round of the draft. I was shocked. Absolutely shocked. And then the next day, social media lit up about stories about his older girlfriend who's from out in Utah and has been with him and have had some different issues with the family and them as far as coagulation. Let me just put it that way. And so they're saying that this young man is being influenced in a really, really odd way by this young lady, and his family has been separated from him and does not have a whole lot of contact with him. I thought it was unusual that the Jazz took him in the second round because this young lady's from out in Utah, and the Mormon church is out. I mean, it seems a little bit odd to me that this young man with all of this talent, the NBA players, NBA people, the players involved in this, the general manager, the assistant general managers, the deep dive guys, if you're an NBA franchise and you don't have a private investigator on your staff, you're not doing your job right. And if you have a private investigator do the deep dive on your staff, now you're going to know some things. And I think they probably went deep dive on this and it didn't come out good. All right. Oso Ighodaro, I had him in the first round. Again, slipped way, way down. Oh, no, Oso is what I got here because I thought he was a much, much better pick and a draft prospect than where he was taken number 40. I know we had the Joker taken in the 40 somewhere, but I don't see Ighodaro being quite that player, but I did think he would be a successful pro. I really did. And so what you have here is the 31, and then we go, okay? And I'm going to give you the grade as we go. And I think the second round, although probably nobody watched it but me and their families, the second round, to me, in this one, is a little bit intriguing, more intriguing than last year's second round, because I think there's some opportunity here for some of these gentlemen to make a team, be a really good NBA player for a little while, have a good career. I don't think it's going to be that easy because you have all this two-way contract stuff right now. You have the G League where they move back and forth between their affiliate and the franchise team, the flagship. So I think it's really, really a little bit gray right now for some of these players in the second round. But let's go through it. We'll give you the grades that we have. And with the number 1 pick in the second round, the Raptors took Jonathan Magbo out of San Francisco. 6'6", superior athlete. A really, really good NBA frame. Got a chance. Gonna have to really spend a lot of time in the gym working on his skill level, working on some things of the offensive nature, but he's got some abilities and he has a chance. I thought this was a little bit high, so I gave it a B-. But Magbo has a chance. The people out in San Francisco think he's terrific. Okay, number 32, the Jazz took Kyle Filipowski, 6'11" out of Duke. I'm gonna give it a B+. Because I think you got a good player, and I think you got him in the second round. And I think that's when other teams back off people and they let them drop. You see that, sometimes, but sometimes other teams will benefit from that as well. And I think the Jazz right here, I'm going to give it a B+ or an A- because I don't know the whole story about what's going on with all of those external factors. But I think if we just judge him based upon his Filipowski basketball abilities and nothing else, I think he was a first-round pick. So I'm going to give it a B+, A-. 33, The Bucks took Tyler Smith, 6'9", G League, has an NBA frame, could blossom, could really turn into something pretty good. I think that's not a bad pick for the Bucks right there. 34, the Blazers, Tyler Kolek out of Marquette. Really, really good career at Marquette. I don't know how much. Again, I didn't like Reed Shepherd in the draft position he was taken. Kolek here and Dalton Connect. I just think you're going to have a difficult time in the NBA. Connect maybe has the best upside of them, possibly, but I don't know. But 34, the Blazers took Tyler Kolek. The Pacers took Johnny Furphy with the 35 pick. Here's one of those second-round picks that I like, Pete. Johnny Furphy out of Kansas, only spent a year, but he's 6'9". He can jump, he can run, he can get into an NBA lane and really be an effective player. Never going to be your first fiddle, never going to be your second fiddle, but he's an effective player. A little bit like, I would say, Braun from Denver Nuggets. You know, somebody who's had a really good career of being a solid role guy, possibly like Dante DiVincenzo with the Knicks. Johnny Furphy. Okay, the Spurs took Juan Nunez, 6'4" out of Spain, good guard, solid, plays the point, has good size. I don't think there's a ton of European guards who've done great in the NBA, and that's why I'm not really that high on them. If you look at the international players who've been really, really great NBA players, a lot of them are 6'11", 6'10". They're much bigger. Wembanyama 7'5" now. So you're going to see some of that. I just don't know how that all shakes out. The Pistons took Bobby Klintman. A lot of people very high on this young man out of Sweden. 6'9", he can do some stuff, but you're going to the Pistons. That's going to be rough, okay? I gave Furphy's situation, let's go back a minute here. I gave Kolek a C. I gave Johnny Furphy a B-. I gave Juan Nunez a D. And I gave Bobby Klintman a C. All right, just to catch up on the grades. The Thunder, A.J. Mitchell, 6'3", out of Santa Barbara. A lot of athleticism, can play, can do some different stuff, but I gave it a C. I didn't think there was anything special about that. And I thought there were other people that are available right here in the second round that are a better pick. So Grizzlies went Jalen Wells, 6'7", out of Washington State. He's got a chance, folks. He's got a chance. 6'7", he's got a big body, but again, he's one of those gentlemen that I say, and I've said this all along, they don't necessarily fit into the NBA prototypes in their positions. They're not big enough to play center. They're not skilled enough to play four, and they can't guard anybody out on the perimeter enough to be a three-man. So that's going to be some problems, and I see Jalen Wells, Ogadaro, Adem Bona, players like that, some taken in the second round here, are in that interpositional stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons that some of the NBA people had a little bit of trouble drafting them. But I want to see good players on my team. I want to see guys who can help you in a lot of different ways. And I think those gentlemen could. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, so now we go to Oso Ighodaro, 6'9", out of Marquette. The Blazers took him. And I like this young man. I think he's got a good upside. But I would have liked to have seen him come into a little bit better situation. Right now, you're going into one of the moribund NBA franchises that are not getting up anytime soon. And so the first 2 to 3 years of this young man's life are going to be stuck in the basement of the Eastern Conference, and they're not going to be able to show their true skill. So when you have these players that are going to Charlotte, that are going to Detroit, that are going to Washington, you know, I think it's going to be rough, okay? In level of Washington, they just hired, the Wizards just hired a Brown assistant, young man I've watched growing up, and a family in Rhode Island that's a very good name in the basketball world. Sorrentine is going to leave Brown and go into the Washington Wizards. So congratulations to Coach Sorrentine as well. 41, the Sixers. Sixers are making some moves. You just put Andre Drummond. You just put Paul George up. Really, really good stuff. And I like this pick because I had him in the first round. At 41, the Sixers took Adem Bona. I think Adem Bona is 6'9", out of UCLA, played a very, very high level, but he's the best athlete in the whole draft, in my opinion. And I think he could be really, really good. 42, the Hornets, KJ. Adem Bona I gave a B+. I thought that was a good one. The Hornets, KJ Simpson, 6 foot out of Colorado, one of the leading scorers for guards in the entire NCAA this year. Did a great job with Colorado with Tristan da Silva. himself, Cody Williams. They had a really good, talented team out there. One of the teams that's faring as well in the NBA draft as anybody. And so I didn't like this one here at all, though. I don't like KJ Simpson as a pro, 6 foot. I might be wrong about that, but I just didn't see it. I gave it a D. Hawks, Nikola Jurisic from Serbia, 6'7" guard. I gave it a D. I didn't like it. I don't like a lot of the international players this year, and I think that you just passed up a lot of really good American players and even a couple of other international players that I think will be better than Nikola Jurisic. Heat took Pell Larson, 6'5", out of Arizona. I didn't see it. I don't think he should have got drafted. He's way, way down on the draft board. And all being said, I don't know. I just don't know about that one. The Raptors took Jamal Sheed. Again, this is good for Jamal Sheed, but again, you're going to the Raptors. You're going to be up there with Scotty Barnes, and the two of you are going to be up there by yourselves, up there looking for Dudley Do-Right to come bail you out because you're going to be stuck in the hinterlands of Canada paying that huge, huge dollar tax on your money, and you're also going to be maybe lucky to get 10 wins next year. So I think if there's any place Jamal Sheed could survive, I think that's a good place for him. I really like this young man. I don't know how well his game translates to the NBA, but he's tough. And if anybody's going to make it on toughness and sheer grit, it's going to be Jamal Sheed. The Clippers took Cam Christie, 6'5" from Minnesota. I think somehow that pick went over to the Lakers somehow. I'm not 100% sure. I'll go back to that. But 6'5" out of Minnesota. A lot of people were high on him and possibly thought first round, but he didn't get into the first round and slipped. The Pelicans, Antonio Reeves, 6'5" out of Kentucky. This gentleman was really, really highly thought of as a high school prospect. Came into Kentucky, didn't really produce as well, and it really showed on his draft. I mean, going from almost a number one prospect in a high school class to a second-round pick is a pretty deep fall. All right, that's a pretty deep fall. All right, Spurs took Harrison Ingram, 6'5" out of North Carolina. Again, they're in a build. They're in a rebuild. They're in a construction phase right now where they're doing everything to try and blow that franchise up and build around Victor Wembanyama. Ingram. I said this last year about the pick Jordan Walsh that the Celtics took. I thought Jordan Walsh would have a tough time getting out on the floor, tough time making the team. I'm going to say the same about Harrison Ingram. I'm going to see him on a two-way contract, I think, pretty quickly. I think the Pacers got a steal here, but I gave Antonio Reeves a D. I gave Harrison Ingram a D because I didn't really like the pick. Tristan Newton out of UConn, 6'5". I thought that this was a steal for the Pacers. I think the Pacers are doing their homework. I don't know who's running that scouting organization over there right now, but I think they're doing a great job. He went out of a 49th pick. He's 6'5" out of Connecticut, and I thought one of the best lead guards available. Pete, how we doing on time?
You got about 2 minutes.
2 minutes. I can do it. I can do it. 50. The Pacers went back-to-back, took Enrique Freeman. You know, I like this young man. Out of Akron, went into the combine and made a name for himself. Didn't play at a big school, played in the lower conference, the conference that UMass is getting ready to join. So there's really good players out there, and this young man has a chance to make it, I think. Melvin Ajinka out of France, 6'7", the Mavericks from the Knicks pick, 6'7". Again, I gave Tristan Newton an A. Enrique Freeman, I gave a B-, and Melvin Ajinka, I didn't get to see him a lot, so I'm going to reserve on that, but I'm going to give it a C. Quentin Post, 6'11", out of Boston College. I had the Celtics taking him at 30, but I think the Celtics did better than what I did because I had no idea that Baylor Sherman would be there at 30. I thought he'd be drafted way, way higher than that, and I think the Celtics got a steal with Sherman. Now, coming to the second round here, I like this pick too. Quentin Post, 6'11", going to Golden State out of Boston College. I thought the Celtics could have drafted him because they could use some help up front. But I think they got a better player because I didn't expect Sherman to be there. And if I had the choice to draft Sherman or Post, I'm taking Sherman every day and twice on Sunday. The Grizzlies at 53. I thought he'd get drafted, and I thought he'd be right in this area. Cam Spencer out of the UConn run, great shooter, has a game, a feel, but he's going to struggle on defense. He's really going to struggle one-on-one. He's going to have to be wide open to shoot the ball. I could see him being a guy that doesn't really get in there and make it a ton. All right, I like him, but I don't know. Celtics took Anton Watson, 6'8", out of Gonzaga. This is one where I hope they've been doing their homework because I don't even know who this guy is. And I had no idea that he was even at Gonzaga. So I think he had an okay career there, but I'm not 100% sure. All right, the Lakers, this is what people were all upset about. from Brad Stevens. And I think Brad Stevens has a little bit more class than this. But people are upset that the Celtics didn't take Bronny at 54 and then hold him hostage for the Lakers and get some picks out of the Lakers for it. Oh, I can hear that, but what would you do if the Lakers just said no? You'd be stuck with Bronny at 54, and you probably didn't want him there. So I see what that's all about, but the Lakers took him at 55. We talked about it. We won't go into too much detail with it right now. 6'2" out of USC. He averaged under 5 points a game. That's salient. That's relevant. All right, the Knicks got Kevin McCullough out of Kansas, the 56 pick. I like it. I'm going to give Anton Watson, I'm going to give that a D because I don't really know. Bronny, I'm going to give Cam Spencer a D too because I don't think so. Bronny, I'm going to give it a B because
You see the marketing.
just on the money.
Yep.
Just on the cash alone. All right, Kevin McCullough from the Knicks, I'm going to give that a B- as well. That young man got hurt. I think he's going to be a really good addition to the Knicks. Ulrich Chomchi, 57 out of the Raptors. Let's hope he can be the Trace Jackson Davis. He's out of Cameroon, 6'10", taken by the Raptors. And this is the guy I told the Knicks to take in the first round. They took him at 58 and got him. Ariel Hukporti, 6'10", out of Germany, one of the international players that I'm very high on in this draft. All right, folks, that brings us to the conclusion. We are going to have to do a little bit of assessment here as we move forward because Pete's going to be covering the World Series, the Babe Ruth World Series, and going to be out for a little bit. We've got Ken Stomsky here possibly going to fill in. We're going to work it all out. Pete and I are going to chat when we get done here, but we'll give you an idea of what's going online, and we'll give you a whole idea about what the future looks like in the zone here as we go into the summer months. We're going to be back every Thursday, but we might take a week or two off here in this next July period. We'll get back and we'll let you know. But we are so happy to be back, have all of you here, survived another July 4th. I know the dogs are struggling right now, so give your dog an extra big, big hug today. But also, remember, we're in the zone, folks, and we'll see you next week.